1776, after declaring independence, the United States of America had to determine how they were going to govern themselves. The first written constitution was called the Articles of Confederation. Created in 1777, the Articles of Confederation created a government that had no president, no executive branch, no judiciary, and no way to tax people. With no income, the federal government had no way to pay off debts from the Revolutionary War, except by requesting money from the states and selling land in the Northwest Territory. By 1787, the United States was in a depression. Farmers in particular had a lot of debt, so Daniel Shays led a group of rebels to try to seize weapons and overthrow the government. Although Shays' rebellion was unsuccessful in overthrowing the government, it is significant because it forced the federal government to try to revise the Articles of Confederation and to create a more powerful central government that would help the people. The result of the attempt to revise the Articles of Confederation was a whole new document called the United States Constitution. It was written in 1787 mainly by James Madison, who is often called the father of the Constitution. The Constitution has 6 goals and is based on 7 major principles.
The Preamble. The introduction or preamble was the beginning of the Constitution. The preamble and much of the Constitution was written by Gouverneur Morris, a delegate from Pennsylvania who attended the Constitutional Convention. The preamble consisted of 6 goals for the United States government. He wrote this first line of the Constitution which read, "We the people of the United States." The first job of the preamble was to form a perfect nation. They wanted the states to cooperate and operate as a united country and to forget about their old way of governing under the Articles of Confederation. The second goal of the government was to create justice for the farmers, treating each citizen equally, which was a fundamental principle. The Constitution provides a national system of courts to protect the people's rights and to hear cases including violations of federal law and disagreements among the states. The third goal of the government was to make sure the people knew that they were safe. The violent protests of Shays' Rebellion in 1786 scared the Americans. The Constitution looks to keep the peace between the people in the nation.
The fourth goal is to provide for the common defense. Under the Articles of Confederation, the nation's defense relied only on a state militia. The states were in no way forced to donate troops, but it was a recommended option. Unlike the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution gives the federal government the power to keep a standing army and/or navy to protect the country and its citizens from attack. This kept the government more stable, and it led it to fend for itself. The fifth goal is to promote the general welfare, or provide according to the needs of the people. This means that the Constitution should try to help most people pursue their happiness most of the time. The Declaration of Independence states that the purpose of government is to promote life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for the people of the nation. The Constitution says the government is to promote the general welfare or well-being of the people by maintaining order, protecting individual liberties, regulating commerce and bankruptcies, as promoting science and technology by granting patents. The sixth goal of the government is to secure the blessings of liberty. The framers believed that preserving liberty should be a major goal for the generations to come. The Constitution protects all American basic rights from being taken everywhere. The sixth goal of the Constitution remains as important today as they were when the Constitution was written. Without these goals stated in the preamble, the government would not have the guidance or direction to perform their duties. These goals help keep the government working at its highest potential for the future.
The Constitution has 7 guiding principles or rules. The first one is popular sovereignty. The first principle or rule is popular sovereignty. The framers lived in a time when the kings believed that their power to rule comes from God. The Constitution added a new idea that the government gets its authority to rule from the people. The preamble is the introduction of the Constitution. It was written by Gouverneur Morris. It begins with the words, "We the people." It reflects the idea that it is the right of people to govern themselves. The people are the source of the government's power. The second is republicanism. People elect their political representatives. Republicanism is a form of government. Instead of having citizens directly participating in the government to help decide everything, citizens elect a representative to do the voting for them and carry out their wishes. Once elected, representatives must remain open to the opinions of the people they represent. In our republic, the people of each state vote for their representatives. Each state gets 2 members in the Senate, and a number of representatives in the House of Representatives is based on the state's people. California has 53 representatives in the House of Representatives. California's representatives must meet with the representatives from other states to debate about their ideas. The representatives discuss the topic until they come to an agreement, which sometimes becomes a law.
Principle number 3, limited government. The Constitution limits the actions of government by specifically listing the powers it does and does not have. In the 1700s, colonists lived under a king who abused his power and would tax the colonists when they had no say in Parliament. The writers of the Constitution wanted to avoid tyranny in the new government. Tyranny is abuse of power by government, like they had with the king. So the writers of the Constitution limited the powers of the new government by writing the Constitution. The Constitution says what the government can and can't do. By writing the Constitution, the framers of the Constitution protected the people and the government that can only do what the Constitution says. Principle number 4. Federalism. In this government system, power is divided between national and state governments. What is federalism? It is the division of powers between the national and state governments. There are certain things that national and state governments can and can't do. For example, the national government has the power to control trade within the state, set standard weights and measures, make new states, create federal courts, declare war, and establish post offices. States have their own powers. States can make corporation laws, control trade in their own borders, establish schools, establish local government, provide public safety, and make laws about marriage and divorce.
Separation of powers. Each of the 3 branches of government has its own responsibilities. Based on the ideas of Barton D. Montague of federal government, is divided into 3 branches. The first branch is the legislative branch, which is where the laws are written. The second branch is the executive branch. This is where the president and the other officials carry out the laws and oversee everything. The last branch is the judicial branch. This is where the judges decide what's right. Number 6, checks and balances. Each branch of government holds some control over the 2 branches. Checks and balances are safeguard that our government has so that our 3 branches, the executive, judicial, and legislature, which each other to make sure none of them abuse their power. For example, let's pretend the legislative branch wanted to pass a law saying that you can only drink Gatorade in public. The judicial branch can review that law and strike it down by saying the law is unconstitutional, and the executive branch can veto the law. When the executive branch is getting out of control, the legislative branch and the judicial branch will watch the executive branch to see if they are doing their job right. When the judicial branch is making a Supreme Court ruling, the legislative branch and the executive branch will watch to make sure that the justice is served. This system of checks and balances is made so that every branch watches the other, so that everything is fair and even within the government.
Individual rights. Basic liberties and rights of all citizens are guaranteed in the Bill of Rights. Individual rights are protected by the Constitution in the Bill of Rights, which is one of the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. Written by James Madison to assure the people worried about a strong central government that people would still have rights, the Bill of Rights lists specific prohibitions on governmental power. The Bill of Rights is a list of the limitations of the power of the government. Some of the amendments in the Bill of Rights are Amendment 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or shortening the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. What the First Amendment means is that the government cannot make a law that gives a certain religion preference over the others. For example, the government cannot allow a public school funding for a Christian school club, but not a Jewish one. If a religion involves sacrifice of animals or people, it is taking the rights away from those animals or people, so it would be illegal. Essentially, the religion isn't infringing on the rights of others or breaks any established laws. The government cannot make a law that specifically targets that group of religion. This amendment also protects the right of the people to peaceably assemble and political freedom of speech. Not all speech is protected under this amendment. For instance, if you yelled bomb on a plane, you would not be protected by freedom of speech since it would induce panic and perhaps cause injuries.
The Second Amendment is basically saying the government needs a military and this amendment protects it. It also allows the citizens of the country to own and use weapons with a rightful reason. These days, a minor under 18 cannot own weaponry, but any adult can own one by taking tests to have a weapon license. Amendment 4 says that the government cannot take your property away without a reasonable cause. Amendment 5 says that it protects everyone's right to a jury trial. It also sets the limits on who gets to be on the trial. This also protects any one person from being tried for the same crime or double jeopardy.
Amendment 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an unbiased jury of the state and district where the crime shall have been done, which district shall have been previously confirmed by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have mandatory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of advice for his defense. This is basically saying that citizens have a right to a speedy trial. Of course, many people nowadays do not find the judicial process speedy at all, but basically this protects against people being held in jail without knowing what they are being charged with for an excessive amount of time. Since the rights are written, the government cannot take away the natural rights of the people. The Constitution, written in 1787, is still in effect today because it allows the government to deal with matters the framers never even thought of, like supervising trading through the internet. The Constitution contains provisions for changing or adding to the document. To amend the Constitution is difficult. More than 9,000 changes have been proposed, but only 27 have passed. Some notable amendments are Amendment 13, which forbids slavery, Amendment 18, which prohibited the production, sale, or transportation of alcohol, Amendment 19, which gave women the right to vote, Amendment 21, which overturned Amendment 18 because it proved too difficult to enforce, and Amendment 26, which guarantees citizens the right to vote at age 18. Although the Constitution can be changed, the 6 goals, 7 major principles, and the Bill of Rights that first appeared in the document remain the same.